If you're a pop culture junkie who loves TV, film, music, comedy, and other really important stuff, then you've come to the right place. Get ready and settle in for Classic Conversations, the best pop culture interviews in the world. That's right, we circled the globe so you don't have to. If you're ready to be the king of the water cooler, then you're ready for Classic Conversations with your host, Jeff Dwoskin.
All right, Tanya, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. You get the show going each and every week, and this week was no exception. Welcome, everybody, to episode 246 of Classic Conversations. As always, I am your host, Jeff Dwoskin. Great to have you back for what's sure to be a hilarious good time with my guest, Gina Yashere, international comedian, originally from London, now tours the world, making everybody laugh. She's the co-creator and now showrunner of Hearts Abishola. Gina's got a million stories to share, and that's coming up in just a few seconds. And in these few seconds, I just want to remind everyone of last week's interview with Gail Ann Hurd, executive producer of Fear the Walking Dead, Man Killer, producer of Terminator 2, The Abyss. Every movie and TV show you love, Gail Ann Hurd was right there. Check that interview out. It's awesome. But also awesome right now is my conversation with Gina Yashere, author of the memoir Cack-Handed. She has numerous comedy specials streaming. You've loved her on Last Comic Standing, The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. So much. So many stories. You're in for a treat. Enjoy. All right, everyone. I'm excited to introduce my next guest. Loved her on The Daily Show, The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, Last Comic Standing, the creator of the hit TV show Hearts Abishola, author of Cack-Handed, a memoir, named Best Comedian 4 times in a row by the Black Entertainment and Comedy Awards, originally from London, but now takes the world by storm, currently on her The Woman King of Comedy tour, never one to get stuck in an elevator. Welcome to the show, Gina Yashere.
Hey, how's it going, Jeff?
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good.
I've been practicing your last name, and I've been practicing Hearts
it was
Abishola.
perfect. It was perfect. I was giving you thumbs up. Did you see me thumbs up in you?
And I said it right fast. Sometimes when you start to go quick, like during an intro, you start to get some momentum, things can go wrong pretty fast.
It was smooth. It was confident. It felt good. I for a second, I almost forgot you weren't Nigerian.
Oh, well, I'll take that as a top compliment. You're coming to Detroit pretty soon in July.
Oh, yeah.
How is the tour going right now, the Woman King of Comedy tour?
Well, I haven't started the American leg yet. So I did 2 dates in the UK, which were fantastic, both sold out within hours. And so the American leg starts next week, starts in San Francisco, but I'm coming to Detroit on the 22nd of July. I'm looking forward to that muchly because I played a show in the outskirts of Detroit in Farmington before, but I've never played Detroit proper. So I'm going to be at the Majestic Theater. So I've never played that. I've heard it's a great venue. And I need everybody to come out and have a good night with me.
Wait a minute, you played in Farmington, Michigan?
Yeah.
I grew up in Farmington Hills, Michigan, which is probably right.
Yeah, I did a show at a Nigerian restaurant. There's a Nigerian restaurant in Farmington, Michigan, and they brought me out there a few years ago to do a show before I got Hearts Abishola. So, and that was kind of part of the reason why I based the show in Detroit, because I was like, well, you've got that wonderful history of industry in Detroit. And then I met a bunch of Nigerians there. So I was assuming that there's a good Nigerian community there.
Yeah, I was watching Hearts Abishola, and I was like, in the opener when it goes Detroit, Michigan, I love when things are set in Detroit. I know you don't film here, but I know you use like Woodward as the name of the hospital.
Yeah, we're not allowed to use the actual names of hospitals, but we do send our camera crew out so when we do the green screen in the cars, we make sure that we get proper Detroit landscape when we're driving. So we do it as best as we can. Yeah, I performed at the Cola Restaurant and Lounge. So if you ever want fancy some Nigerian food and get a feel of that flavor of the show, go and check that place out.
I think I will put that on my list of things must do. Like I was watching, he's driving and it's like Detroit's 97.1. And like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. So when you come to Detroit, then you're going to get to be able to kind of do the Detroit things.
Yeah. I want to take some drives down those streets that we've had in our show. And I also watch, what's that show with the two gay boys that do the houses? Bargain Block. I'm a massive fan of the TV show Bargain Block. So I'm definitely going to go around Detroit and look for those houses that they've done up. Do you ever watch Bargain Block, Jeff? It's brilliant.
I haven't watched it. There's, there's so much stuff out there. It's just like, but I'm like, I got places to eat now. I got shows to watch. This is like the greatest interview ever.
Yeah, it's called Bargain Block. This gay couple, one's a really super talented artist, one's a super talented contractor, and they buy these rundown houses on blocks in Detroit, and they do them up beautifully, just themselves. They kind of move into the house, do it up beautifully, paint murals, and they dumpster dive for furniture, and then they refurbish this furniture, and then they sell it to local residents for really good prices. They're not like developers coming in and just overpricing things. They sell it to local Detroit people. It's amazing. You gotta watch the show. Yeah.
All right. It's on the list. It is on.
I'm a fan of Detroit, Jeff, is what I'm saying. I'm a fan.
I can tell. I mean, all right. That's awesome. So, all right, well, we'll work back up to the sitcom, because I know there's so much life story, Gina. Yeah. I couldn't even begin. I was fascinated by your whole origin story and your mom's origin story and your grandma in Nigeria. I mean, that is just wow.
Yes, a small section of my life. So yeah, my parents were born in Nigeria, and I'm actually a reincarnation of my grandmother. So my grandmother was part of a harem, because in Nigeria, back in the olden days, a man could marry more than one woman. She was one of many wives. She was the second wife and the favored wife of this chief. But the other wives were kind of jealous of her. And, she had a lot of kids, and she used to say to my mother, her daughter, when I come back, because Nigerians believe strongly in reincarnation, she was like, when I come back, I'm going to speak English. I'm going to live in England. I'm not going to have all these kids. I'm going to have no kids. I'm going to do a man's job. I'm going to do jobs that men are supposed to do. I'm going to be a rebel. I'm going to live a totally different life when I come back. And she died quite young because she was poisoned by the other wives. I mean, that is a show in itself. The other wives poisoned her, and she died because they were jealous of her. But when she died with a mark on her throat. And so I never met my grandmother. I was born years after she died. But when I came out with a birthmark on my throat, which was a sign to my mother that I was a reincarnation of her mother. And I came out basically exhibiting all of the traits that my grandmother had said that she was going to have. So totally rebellious. I did men's jobs. I did jobs that were specifically for men, not even just a comedy. I was an engineer before I did comedy. I was an elevator engineer. I build and repair elevators. And I was the first woman engineer that Otis had ever had in their 100-year history in the UK. So I came out basically doing all the things that my grandmother said that she was going to do. So I'm hoping that she's happier with her life this time round. And then my parents met in England and had us. I was born and raised in England. Yeah.
I mean, your grandma had 10 kids, and these other wives, before being so jealous that they murdered her, they killed all her sons as well.
A lot of her sons, all her sons died.
Yeah.
My mother has brothers, but brothers from the other wives. Her full brothers, all of them died under mysterious circumstances. And we believed that the other wives were, so that my grandmother wouldn't have stronger standing within the family. They were basically killing her sons, because it was cutthroat back in those days. I know, it's like the worst of a royal, but then again, that stuff was happening in the British royal family in the 1300s. If you look at the brothers in the tower, one king locked two brothers in a tower and left them there to die so that he could become king, so that they wouldn't become king and usurp his power. This stuff has been happening in medieval times for the longest.
Your grandma is murdered, and then you end up in London. Your mom fled, right, to London. Then she meets your dad.
Yes, my grandmother sent my mother to London before she was killed, and begged my granddad to send her to England to get her away, because my mother, they weren't really into educating girls at those times. And yet my grandfather, because my mother was kind of one of his favorite child, he educated her, and she was very well educated. And the other wives were jealous because their girls weren't getting educated. So yeah, basically after my grandmother was killed, my grandfather finally saw sense and sent my mother to England to study, where she's been ever since. And she met my dad there, and that's where we were all born.
Awesome. So, all right. So you grew up in London. I was just in London not too long ago. My daughter spent a semester there at Westminster. So we came to visit for a couple of days. I did the Abbey Road thing.
Oh, yeah. Everybody does that.
We get there and I'm like, oh my God, this is just like an intersection. This is like,
Yeah,
nobody cares.
It's a zebra crossing. That's all it is. It's just an average zebra crossing.
I mean, the photo is great, but like just the idea that I could have died any second.
No, we have to stop at zebra crossing. So the likelihood of you dying is quite low.
Okay, good.
It's against the law. If you see someone on a zebra crossing, if you run them over, you are in big trouble. You have to stop.
Okay, well, I wish I had known that.
Yeah, so you could have taken mucho pictures.
I would have
had to wait. You'd have got a lot of abuse, but we'd have had to wait for you.
Yeah, I would have slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
So, how was growing up in London and the path to becoming an engineer before you then moved on to comedy before coming to the United States?
I mean, I was a kid in London in the 70s when large numbers of immigrants were now being invited or coming over from various countries, from Africa, from the Caribbean, from India, Pakistan. And I was living in the East End of London, which was a very working class area. But unfortunately, the working class white people were not too happy about all these black and brown people flooding in, or they called it flooding in. We weren't flooding in. We were bringing something to the neighborhood. Our food, our culture, our work ethic. But, the classic divide and conquer system, they turned the working class white people against the working class black and brown people that were coming in. So I didn't have much of a good time. I spent my childhood running away from skinheads a lot. But I didn't know any different. That's where I was born. I still had a really fun childhood. I still enjoyed life despite all that. And so I was born and raised in London, and then I studied electronics at school. I became an engineer only because I couldn't stand the sight of blood. My mother's first choice for me was to become a doctor, but then I got to A-level, advanced level biology, and we had to cut open a rat, and I was like, oh yeah, this ain't going to work for me. I can't stand the sight of blood or squishy bits. So I switched to engineering. So I went from physics and biology, chemistry to physics, maths, and French. Yeah, we call it maths because mathematics is plural. It's not math, it's maths. So and I ended up becoming an engineer and ended up working for Otis, building elevators.
You find a lot of comedians are brilliant, like yourself. When did you decide fixing elevators wasn't for you and comedy was going to be your path in life?
Well, it wasn't a decision, so to speak, because I was the company's first woman engineer. I worked on a lot of construction sites. Men on construction sites. They're not the best, and they're certainly not the best when they have a black woman who comes in and they've never had their space invaded because they saw me as an invader. So I put up with a lot of sexism and racism and misogyny on site. I'd come into work in the morning and I'd put my overalls on and there'd be banana skins stuffed in my pockets or a picture of a monkey on the wall. But it was pretty gnarly. But I stuck it out because I was like, you lot ain't driving me out of this job. I'm going to prove that I'm better than you guys and you're not going to drive me out. So I stuck the job out 4 years. But being with the company, because I was their first woman, they didn't know what to do with me. So once I qualified to the point where because I was studying all the time I was working, I was doing my degree while I was working. And I qualified to the point where I should be able to run my own site. And when I qualified for that, they wouldn't let me run my own site because they were like, well, yeah, guys aren't going to listen to a woman boss. So we'll give you the promotion and give you the money, but we're not going to give you the responsibility. And I was like, well, then there's no point me being here anymore. What's the point of working to get to this point and you're not going to, what's the point of hiring a woman and letting me work my way up the ranks, but not letting me do the job? So I left. Basically, they were making, the building industry went for a slump in the mid-90s and they were laying people off. They were never going to lay me off because I was their poster girl. They had me on the front of every brochure. Look at us. Look how forward thinking we are. We've got a woman. We've got a black woman. Look, we've got both. Look at this. But I was like, let me go or else I'll go public with exactly what I've suffered within the walls of this company. And they were like, yeah, I think we're going to let you go. So I left. And it was in that time that I fell into comedy. My plan was to leave that job, enjoy the summer off, because I left in sort of June. And I was like, I'm going to enjoy the summer. And then come October, I'll get another job once I've run out of money. And I just never end up going back to work. I started doing open mics and people started going, I'll give you $50 if you come and do my show. And I'll be like, $50 for 10 minutes? I'm going to be a millionaire by the end of this year. And so basically I just started doing open mics, and within 6 months of starting, I got booked for a talent show that was on television, and it just went from there. And I just never ended up going back to engineering. The elevator job was my last job as an engineer.
Gina, it sounds like it was a nightmare. Like with the racism and like your color, your sex. I mean, it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm glad you persevered and like showed them. And then, oh, I have a question. So, you know, you mentioned you didn't come out then, but Otis is still around now, right?
Oh, yeah. Otis is the largest elevator and escalator company in the world.
So they heard you talking about it now and said anything?
They've said nothing. They've kept real stum. And I've tagged them in posts where I've talked about what I suffered. Nobody from the company has ever contacted me or tried to apologize. They've just gone, let's just keep quiet and hopefully she'll go away.
All right. Well, if I'm ever in a building that isn't too tall, I will take the stairs. In solidarity for you. Too many flights, I might have to.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's boycott Otis.
Yeah, hashtag walk. Time to walk.
Hashtag walk. And, you know, everybody will be fitter as a result. I mean, it's a win-win situation.
It is, really.
Yeah.
I think we just solved a lot of the world's problems.
Yep.
Right so comedy-wise, in London, you're blowing up on London. You're on TV. You're winning awards. So you're becoming a superstar in London. That's kind of your first stop.
Yeah. Well, in the UK, I was traveling all over the UK and the world because at that point I was traveling, you know, to places like Hong Kong and Singapore and Australia and Dubai to do shows. So I was doing pretty well in the UK, doing the stand-up, doing guest appearances on TV shows and selling out small theatres. So I definitely was making a good living doing what I love. I felt like I'd kind of hit a glass ceiling as a Black woman of comedy. You know, there's only so far you can go. In the UK, there is a bit of a nightclub policy when it comes to Black comics. It's like one in, one out. So when one Black comic gets a TV show, the rest of us are like, all right, we just have to wait for them to die. And that's basically how it was. So even though I was making guest appearances on other people's TV shows, I was never going to get my own TV show because there was a Black comic ahead of me who had TV. So I knew I was never going to hit that. Whereas a million white comics were getting their TV shows and blowing up, like comedians who were opening up for me at some point, then surpassed me and went on to be selling out stadiums. And while I was still waiting for this one Black comic to die. So it got to a point where I was like, I need to get the hell out of here. As a kid, I'd always dreamed of living in America because I used to watch Different Strokes in the Cosby Show. And I was like, wow, these kids live the greatest life. American kids have a great life. They get to go to the beach after school and ride around their neighborhoods on bikes, solving crimes. So I was like, I need to go to America. So from childhood, I always wanted to live in America. Even when I worked as an engineer, Otis is an American company. And that was a conscious decision to work for an American company because my plan was to at some point transfer and become an engineer in America and live my dream as an engineer in America. So when I started doing comedy, then I was like, well, comedy, America's the home, stand-up comedy. So, you know, even in the first few years of my UK career, every year I'd fly out to New York and just go up at comedy clubs and just do sets for free just to see if my stuff would travel. So it felt like I'd been planning to come to America since the age of 4. So once I got to a point where I was like, all right, I'm not going to reach the heights that I want to in England. Let me go to America and swim with the sharks.
All right. And just to kind of confirm your suspicions, I did solve many crimes as a child on my bike.
I'm telling you, man. I don't doubt it, Jeff. I don't doubt it. I bet you caught a bunch of burglars.
Oh, yeah. We once stopped a bank robbery. It was we were pretty well known. Sorry to interrupt, but we have to take a quick break. I do want to thank everyone for their support of the sponsors. When you support the sponsors, you're supporting us here at Classic Conversations, and that's how we keep the lights on. And now back to my incredible conversation with Gina Yashere. All right, so you're on TV in London, you're doing all this. When you travel the world, even then or now, or when you came to America and would do these sets in New York, how did the comedy translate?
Yeah, I never changed myself. I adapted my comedy for the audience I was playing. So if I'm playing in New York, I've always played it as an outsider. So if I go to a different place, the majority of my stuff is storytelling anyway. It's about myself and my culture and my life and who I am, which doesn't change. But then when I go to a new place, I like to wander around and observe things and pick up. If it's in a foreign country, I'll pick up bits of the language and pick up the local curse words and incorporate that into my act. So they know that I'm actually catering and not just doing a cut and paste of my set wherever I am in the world. I like to actually incorporate local stuff into my act. And when I go to America, I used to talk about the fact that I'm a Black British person and observing, especially Black British culture, observing Black American culture as an outsider looking in. So I did a lot of material based on that and explaining who I am. Because when I was going to America, people didn't know there were Black people in England. So I'd have to explain, yep, I look like you guys, but I'm not from here. We are Black people. We are in England. We are all over the world. And I'd have to spend time explaining. So I'd write jokes to explain that rather than do a, TSA before I walked on stage. I'd incorporate it into my act. And it went down very well. I was different. I was exotic.
Wait a minute. Back up for 1 second. There's Black people in Britain?
You know now, Idris Elba has changed the game.
It's so funny. Was Last Comic Standing the first big bridge to America?
Yeah, so I've been coming over the years, just testing my stuff out. The year before Last Comic Standing, I'd entered myself into a competition called the Bay Area Comedy Competition. And it was a urban comedy competition. A lot of Black comics from all over America flew to Oakland to compete. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to fly myself out to America and just compete. I mean, the prize money was like, I remember the prize money being $2,000, which was less than what I paid for the flight. So for me, it was very much an experiment just to see how I would do in front of the crowd. So that was the year before Last Comic Standing. So I'd always been planning to somehow get to America. But it's very difficult to get a visa to work in America. Very difficult. So I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I was hoping at some point the opportunity would present itself. And then I was doing the Montreal Comedy Festival, just for laughs, that same year that I flew myself out for competition. And a comedian came up on stage. Her name was Roz G, R.I.P., God rest her soul, she's died now. She came up on stage and they announced her as seen on the Last Comic Standing. And I was like, what is that? And I Googled it. I was like, oh, it's kind of like an American Idol, but for comedians. And at the time, it was very much an American-centric show. It was just American comics within America. So I immediately called my agent in London from Montreal. I called her up and I said, listen, there's this TV show in America called Last Comic Standing. I want to become the first British comic to appear on that show. I want to be on that show. I don't care whether they pay me on it. I'll fly myself over. I'll pay for my own hotels. They don't have to pay for anything. I would just fly myself over there so I can compete and hopefully get into America that way. Well, the universe, luck will have it that a producer from Last Comic Standing, Paige Hurwitz, had been in London 6 months before and had gone to the Comedy Store in London and had seen me perform and had gone back to America and said, there's this British comic I saw called Gina Yashere. I think she's hilarious. She needs to be on this show. In fact, let's open up Last Comic Standing worldwide and have comedians from all over the world compete. So as I was phoning my agent to say, get me on this show, Last Comic Standing were already looking internationally. Later on that year, I was on tour in Australia and I auditioned for the show in Australia. So that's why the first couple of years I was in America, people assumed that I was Australian because they'd seen me on the show audition in Sydney, Australia for the show. And that's why I got on the show. When I got through, I got through to the semi-finals, which was being shot in Los Angeles. In order to come over from England to Los Angeles to compete, they had to get me a work visa. And they got me a visa. And I was like, I assumed they were just going to get me a visa for the 4 weeks that I was going to be on the show. And when I looked at the visa, I was like, this visa's for 2 years. So I called up the NBC lawyers and I was like, let me just double check something. This visa's like 2 years. So does that mean I can live and work in America for 2 years, regardless of how far I get on this TV show? And they were like, yes, a 2-year visa, bought and paid for. So I then put my house on the market in England, sold and gave away everything I owned, threw a massive party for all my friends and family, and was like, I'm moving to America. Goodbye. And everybody's like, you're crazy. It's only a 2-year visa. You're going to have to come back. And I was like, nah, I'm going to turn that visa into a green card and then into citizenship at some point. I ain't coming back. Goodbye. And I left. I turned up in Los Angeles for the semi-final of Last Comic Standing with 2 suitcases to my name, thinking, I'll be fine. I'm going to win this show. I'll win that $250,000. I'll use that $250,000, buy myself a nice little condo in LA, and then move on to TV stardom. It's a done deal. And I got voted off the following week. But I still had that 2-year visa. So I basically spent the next couple of years just working hard, hitting all the comedy clubs I could and just hustling, and turned that 2-year work visa into a green card.
Gina, you have a history of seeing opportunity and just going all in. It's very inspirational.
Absolutely. I'm very gung-ho.
So you said you were the first British comedian on Last Comic Standing, but
I wasn't, because I wanted to be the first and only, but because they'd already decided to go international, a bunch of us British comics came out and competed. Yeah.
But because of you, right? Because they had seen you. So indirectly, whether you didn't know at the time when you're calling your agent, that's a great, but like you inspired that whole concept, which was what you were going for.
That's true. Yeah. I didn't even think about it that way. Yeah.
Amazing. That was, so that's season 5, right? So John Reap won that year. That's the year that brought us Amy Schumer, Ralph Harris.
Yes.
Doug Benson was there. Dante was there with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
yes.
Oh, and Lavelle Crawford.
Oh, yeah.
Who had an amazing turn in Breaking Bad.
Lavelle, if I'm going to be 100% honest, Lavelle should have won the show.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
He should have won the show. In fact, because it was between him and John Reap.
Right.
To me, John Reap was like a, Forever 21 version of Larry the Cable Guy. At the time, he was in that vein. He was fine, but he was nothing new. Lavelle should have won. But, basically after the final, after he'd won, Lavelle came back down the corridor singing, America, America.
Hey, sometimes it's not about taking first place, right? I mean, you won. You were probably one of the biggest winners, because look what you turned that into.
Oh, well, it took a long time after that. I struggled for a long time after Last Comic Standing to get, I thought, well, now I've been on this show, surely that's going to turn into many opportunities. And it did not. I spent a few years hustling and struggling after Last Comic Standing. But I had the work visa. I was able to live and work in America. So that was the one thing that Last Comic gave me, is a foothold into America.
Well, you went from one of the first Brits on Last Comic Standing to the first on Def Comedy Jam.
The first and only British comedian ever to do Def Comedy Jam. Yes, indeed.
Tell me that story, how you got on that.
And that was also another opportunity that just presented itself in the moment. So there's a promoter called Nichelle Murdoch, wonderful promoter who's been doing a show in the belly room of the Comedy Store for years. And she's very supportive of young comedians coming up and comedians like myself coming from different places. She always puts us up and lets us perform. They were doing an audition for Last Comic Standing at her night, which is called Crack 'em Up Thursdays. They were auditioning comedians for Last Comic Standing. I was not part of that process. I'd literally just moved to America at that point. I'd just been booted off of Last Comic Standing, and I was just going around the comedy clubs, just seeing what was what. And I couldn't get on at these comedy clubs. I used to just sit, because they didn't know who I was. Even though I was a famous comedian from England, they're like, we don't know who the hell you are. So no, we're not going to book you. So I used to just sit at the back of comedy clubs, hoping for somebody to late. So if a comedian was late, I'd go, well, while you're waiting for them, I can go up and do 5 minutes up until they get here. And that's how I got on at comedy clubs when I first moved out here. But I was sitting in the belly room watching this audition happen. I didn't know an audition was happening. I was just watching comedians go up. And Damon Wayans Jr., who's the son of Damon Wayans, who's quite a famous actor in his own right and comedian in his own right, went up on stage and absolutely destroyed the place. Absolutely killed. And the comedian who was meant to be going after him didn't want to go up. Didn't want to follow in his wake. So they were like, well, who wants to go on up? Who wants to go up after Damon? And a lot of comedians were like, yeah. And I was just sitting there. So I was like, I'll go up. Because I didn't care at this point. I'm already a well-known comedian. I know that I can follow anybody. I'm confident in my abilities. So I was like, I'll go up, do a set until you guys decide who's going to go up. So they were like, fine. And they threw me up and I did my thing. And I killed also. And then the next day I get a call from a producer saying, hi, we saw you at the Comedy Store in the belly room at Crack 'em Up Thursdays. And we'd like to book you for Def Comedy Jam. And I was like, cool. How much are you paying? Because I'd been booted off Last Comic Standing and I just rented a room off somebody and I needed money. I was basically living off my savings from the UK and I was like, all right, yeah, let's go. So yeah, I became the first and only Brit to do Def Comedy Jam.
There you are again, seizing the
Yep.
opportunity.
Yep, indeed.
Amazing. It's amazing how many people just kind of just sit there and wouldn't have done it. And then you kind of think, oh, what could have been, right?
Exactly.
How did you come to working with Jay Leno on The Tonight Show as Madame Yashere?
So when Jay Leno, when he ended his run at The Tonight Show, he got another show afterwards, which was another Tonight Show, basically, which was on after The Tonight Show. So Conan O'Brien took over hosting The Tonight Show. And then Jay Leno had a show after that called The Jay Leno Show, which was essentially the same show. And so they were looking to try and differentiate the show from The Tonight Show. So they were out looking for new talent to do sketches or do something on the show to make it look a bit different. So they'd seen me performing around town, taking late comedian spots, and they basically invited me to come in and pitch ideas to perform on the Jay Leno Show. So I wrote up a list of fantastic ideas that I came up with for sketches that I could do on the show. And on the drive there at a traffic light, I came up with another idea. I was like, oh, I used to do a routine about fake psychics and how they're like, your name, I see a man coming through. His name is John, James, Michael. His name begins with A, B, C, D, E. So I used to do this whole routine about fake psychics. So at a traffic light on the way to the meeting, I scribbled down fake psychic, just one line at the bottom of all these beautifully fleshed out ideas that I'd spent hours creating. Get to the meeting with the producers that worked on Jay Leno's show, and I pitched all these ideas, one after the other. And one after the other, they were like, no, until my last idea that I'd fleshed out, and they turned down every single idea. And I was like, oh my God, well, this is a complete failure. And they were like, have you got anything else? There's nothing else. And I was like, no. And then I looked at this scribble at the bottom of the page and I was like, well, there is this idea about maybe me playing a fake psychic, and their eyes opened and their ears pricked up. Now, I had nothing written down. All I had was fake psychic that I'd scribbled down at a traffic light. But they were like, well, tell us more. And I just started winging it. They're just like, she's a fake psychic, and we put her in a booth, and members of the public won't know that she's a fake psychic. And then they come in and I give them fake readings, and it's going to be like a candid camera type thing. And they were like, we love it. Because they had a thing that they used to do on The Tonight Show called photo booth, where they put a photo booth on Santa Monica Boulevard, and people would come in thinking they're taking a photo, and then they'd have a comedian doing the voice just saying, your hair looks ridiculous, take off those stupid, whatever. That. So for them, it was like, oh, it'll be like photo booth, which we know works very well, but now we're doing fake psychic instead. So yeah, they latched onto that idea, that scribble, and that's how I became the surly psychic on the Jay Leno Show.
That's amazing. Kira Sultanovich.
Yes, Kira Sultanovich did the voice of photo booth. Yeah, that's right.
That's an amazing story, though. I mean, sometimes, though, that's kind of like when you're coming up with material, right? Probably some of the first things you think of, get them out of the way, and then made room in your brain for fake psychic. But sometimes you can overthink these things. It makes sense. Oh, that's so cool. That's a great origin story. Everything about you has a great story attached to it. Probably why you wrote a book, right?
Well, there you go. And I stopped the book at the point where I get on the plane to America. So all these stories that I'm telling you right now, those are going to be probably in the second book, the struggle in America, and how, and these stories, the Jay Leno story, the how I got Bob Hearts Abishola, these will be the second book. The first book literally just covers, it's a memoir called Cack-Handed, available in all good bookstores, by the way, go get it. But yeah, it covers my upbringing up until the point I step on the plane. So there's so many more stories that I haven't even told yet.
And Cack-Handed means left-handed, clumsy, that kind of thing. I'm left-handed too.
Yes.
We got that in common. Boom.
Yay.
Left-handed people rule the world. So
we do. Like if you look up some of the top people on the planet, we are left-handed. Whoopi Goldberg's left-handed. Robert De Niro's left-handed. Like there's a lot of talented people that are left-handed. And I say it's awkward. It also means awkward and clumsy, but I believe that we are perceived as awkward and clumsy because 90% of the world is right-handed. The world is made for them.
That's right. Lots of left-handed people. Obama, Oprah, Paul McCartney, all left-handed. Lady Gaga.
Exactly.
Boom.
Exactly.
All famous lefties. So All right, we got to start a club. All right, so this is, again, another amazing story. So Chuck Lorre is on the Google, right? And comes across you as he's developing or has this idea for a show.
Yeah, it wasn't even Chuck that found me on Google. So basically what happened, Chuck had approached Eddie Gorodetsky and Al Higgins, who are the two co-exec producers that work and showrunners that worked with him for a long time. Goes, I want to make a show, Billy Gardell. Again, I don't want to do another Mike and Molly. You know, I just came back from vacation in Africa, and I think I want the woman to not be another Melissa McCarthy. Let's make her African. What do you think? And the guys are like, all right, we'll see if we can make it happen. Chuck goes away, and then a few weeks later, he comes back and he's like, it's never going to happen. Where are we going to find an African female comedian can help us make this sitcom? It's never going to, do they even exist? Now, in the meantime, Al and Eddie had typed into Google Nigerian female comedian, because when you Google Africa, Nigeria is the loudest of all the countries. We come up first. So then they narrowed it down from an African comedian to a Nigerian comedian. And they typed into Google Nigerian female comedian. A few of us came up. There's a few of us, but obviously I'm the best.
Obviously.
They found a set of mine that I'd done on TV in England where I was doing my material and I was talking about my upbringing and my culture, and my mother was in the audience, and I pointed to my mum. My mum stands up in full Nigerian regalia and the crowd goes nuts. So they found this set of mine and they were like, well, this girl looks promising. And they'd had it on the laptop on pause for days. So then Chuck comes back in the room and goes, scrap that idea. We're never going to find a Nigerian female comedian. Maybe we'll make her something else. And then Al and Eddie were like, well, what about this woman? And then they just turned the laptop round to face Chuck, press play. Chuck watches my set and laughs and goes, where is this woman? Get her. So out of the blue, in the summer of 2018, I get a call. I'm living happily in New York, pursuing my stand-up, living life. Because I've moved to New York by this point, because after 7 years in LA making no money, I was like, I need to go to New York where I can actually make a living doing stand-up. So I'd been in New York for 5 years at this point. And I get a call out of the blue from my agent saying, you got to fly to Los Angeles on Sunday night for a meeting on Monday morning with Chuck Lorre. So I get flown over for a meeting and I walk into into his office. Al and Eddie are there. And basically Chuck says, I've got this idea for a show. There's nothing on paper. It's not fleshed out. This is what I want to do. Can you help us? We're 3 white guys. We can't do this. We need you to help us, do this properly. I'm obviously suspicious. And at the end of the meeting, I go, thanks for that. Lovely. And I leave the meeting. And then I call my agent and go, nah, this don't sound right. Tell them thank you, but no thank you. But I've got no interest in this. This just sounds weirdly exploitative. And I don't trust. I've been ripped off by too many white guys in this industry. I had my ideas stolen and done with other people. I don't trust this. No thanks. And my agent was like, I'll give you a day to think about it.
Sorry to interrupt just as we are about to learn the fate of Bob Hearts Abishola, but we have to take a quick break. And we're back to find out what happened.
And in the meantime, I told my brother and my best friend about this meeting. They called up to find out how it had gone. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing it. And my brother and best friend just screamed at me for 2 hours. Like, are you an idiot? This is an opportunity for you to make a show. You're always complaining about the opportunities not being there for you as a black woman in this industry. And here is a guy handing you a key to the door into the industry and you're turning it down, you idiot. And I was like, yeah, maybe you're right. So I went back and had another meeting with the guys and I decided to stay and write this pilot with them. And so this Monday meeting turned into 2.5 weeks of me in a room with Chuck, Al, and Eddie writing a pilot. So I created the characters of the family. I picked the names. I picked where they're from in Nigeria and basically took elements from a story. And here's the thing. This is why I was so suspicious, because the year before, I'd been pitching a show based on my family and based on my life, which is now in the memoir, which is the memoir, basically. And I was pitching that show the year before, and I pitched it to every network, every streamer, and nobody wanted it. Nobody. And then a year later, I get a call. So I was suspicious. I was like, nobody wants my show, but suddenly this white guy wants to make a show, which is basically going to be using many elements from the show that I was pitching that nobody wanted. But okay, fine. And I didn't trust it. But once I got in the room with Chuck, Alan, and Eddie, I started to trust the process. I was like, well, I've got all these ideas that are in my pitch that I did last year that nobody wanted. I could bring these ideas and inject them into this show, which is more likely to get made because it's Chuck Lorre. I tussled with that. I struggled with that idea for a day or two, thinking, should I take my ideas and give it to these guys and hope they don't steal it and lock me out of the process? Because then my show is dead and they go forward with all my ideas and I'm done. But once I got in the room with Chuck, I thought, this guy is no nonsense. He's no bull. I'm going to trust him. And so basically, I began using the stories from my own life, which were in my original pitch. So if you know Abishola's story, that is the story of my parents. My parents met in England. My mother was a qualified head teacher. Dad was a lawyer. They met in England. But at the time, England in the 60s was super racist. Black people could only drive buses or work in the post office. And so my dad was like, well, I'm a lawyer. You're a head teacher. Let's go back to Nigeria so we can work in our respective fields. And my mother was like, no, my children are British. They're born here. I'm going to stay here and sacrifice my career so that my children can have all the opportunities that will be available to them being born British. And my dad was like, okay, then. And then he went back to Nigeria. And him and my mother, that was the end of their marriage. And my dad went back to Nigeria, became a lawyer in Nigeria and lived out his best life, had a whole other family. And my mother stayed in England and struggled to raise us on her own. That is the story of Abishola. If you know the story, if you know the show Bob Hearts Abishola, that is Abishola's story, where her husband goes back to America, become an architect, and she stays behind and is left raising Dele on her own. So basically, I took many, many elements from my life and from the pitch that I'd been trying to sell a year earlier and injected them into this show. I put all my chips on the table and pushed them in and was like, all right, let's do it. And luckily, Chuck is an honorable man and we made this show. He made me a co-creator and now season 4, I'm a showrunner. And it's been a very successful run and I'm very excited. I'm very happy that, it's annoying that it took a white, wealthy, well-connected man to get my show made. But I'm grateful to him because if he hadn't opened that door, he didn't have to. He could have just gone, I can make this show. I don't need a black person to help me make it. I can do it. I'm Chuck Lorre. I can do this. But at least he had the foresight to go, you know what? Let me bring in someone from the culture. And that has now opened doors not only for myself, but I was able to open doors for other black writers, but for actors who are now working on this show who might have struggled to get in the industry door. So Chuck has opened the door for a whole new wealth of talent.
Well, God bless Chuck Lorre and God bless you. That's a great story too. Oh man, wow. See, you just so this part 2, the second book's gonna be just as good as the first one.
Oh yeah.
What made you guys come up with the idea that this Billy, the main guy, Billy Gardell's character, is a sock manufacturer? It just seems so.
So we obviously based the show in Detroit,
right?
And that whole, the industrial history of Detroit. But we didn't want to just go cars. We wanted to do something different and fun and make it a business that nobody ever thinks about. Do you know what I mean? Nobody thinks when they put on socks. Where do they come from? So we went through a bunch of different ideas. The Office did a paper, you know what I mean?
Right.
So we're like, let's think of a company, a business that is overlooked a lot, that nobody would even think about delving deeper into the machinations of this, business. So that's where we came up with the compression socks.
I mean, it's important. He's it's funny. And then, the Daily Show. You were the British correspondent for the Daily Show.
I was, yeah.
Did you know Mike Costa? Is he ever there?
I was on the Daily Show before Mike came on, but I think I was, yeah. I don't think he was one of the correspondents, but I knew him before because when I first moved to LA, I used to see him on the circuit doing stand-up, so I knew him before.
Okay, he's from Michigan. I used to do open mics with him.
Oh wow, yeah. So I used to see him around LA, so I knew him before he became a correspondent, and that is also another interesting story because I never auditioned for it because I never thought my face fit for Comedy Central. I tried to get specials on Comedy Central over the years and been turned down. It was mainly because they didn't think I fit their demographic. So basically, I wasn't hot enough or young enough or pretty enough for the Comedy Central's demographic. So I never, when they were looking for correspondence to audition for the show. I never did audition. I was like, nah, they're never going to book me. I don't fit their demographics. I'm not going to bother waste my time. But what it was, I'd known Trevor Noah before. Years before, when he first came to America, Gabriel Iglesias had a show called, I think it was called Stand Up Revolution or something like that. So years before I did this TV show, Gabriel Iglesias had seen me on a show when I opened for Cat Williams, and Cat had got into a fight with a member of the audience. This was at the Improv in, I'm going to say Orange County, Ontario. Yeah, Improv, Ontario. Cat had got into a altercation with a member of the audience on the Friday night. So on the Saturday night, the comedy club decided that they weren't going to allow him back in the building, and the show was sold out. So they were like, Gina, can you go up and do 45 minutes and we'll get other famous comedians to come in and do sets to fill the time. So I went up and did a set, and Gabriel was on that night, and a few other famous comedians came in to do sets that night. And Gabriel had seen me there. So when he got his TV show, Stand Up Revolution, he booked me to do a set on this show. So I did a set, and Trevor Noah was on the show. I'd never seen this guy before. He basically come over and he was touring with Gabriel, you know, while he worked his way into the American market. He went up and absolutely destroyed. So I saw him afterwards and I was like, oh my God, you're really funny. Great. And in my head, I'm like, who the hell is this kid? And then I went home and Googled him and I was like, oh my God, he's a superstar in South Africa. You know, he was already driving Ferraris and a multimillionaire before he'd even set foot on American soil. He was already a superstar. So I was like, oh, that's why this kid is so good. He's a superstar in South Africa. And then I kept bumping into him all over the world because I'm an international comedian. I go do shows in Australia, I go do shows in Singapore, and I kept bumping into him. I'd be doing my little shows in Australia and he'd be selling out an arena down the street. After my shows, I'd go to his arena and stand outside handing out flyers for my show going, well, if you like Trevor, you might like me. And that's what I would do. I'd just follow his big shows around and stand outside flyering his shows and trying to get these audience to come and see me. And then I'd go in and hang out with him and stuff. So I kept bumping into him all over the world under that guise. And then he moved to New York. I was in New York at the same time, and we'd sit at the Comedy Cellar in New York and we'd chat and talk about the difficulties of being a foreign comedian and trying to do it in this market. And so when he got the Daily Show, I was happy for him. I texted him and I was like, congratulations. And then maybe a year into him being on the Daily Show, I get a text from him going, hey, I'd love you to come in and meet us. I'd like you to do some stuff on the show. So Comedy Central never booked me. The Daily Show never booked me. Trevor just texted me and goes, come on in. I like what you do. Let's get you doing some stuff. And that's how I became the British correspondent. I mean, I didn't do that many appearances on the show because somebody behind the scenes was cock blocking me because they hadn't booked me, even though I was doing stuff on the show and doing really well. They just weren't giving me the many opportunities on the show. So eventually I was like, thanks for the opportunity, Trevor. But, in the end, I just stopped pitching because they just kept turning down my pitches. And then Hearts Abishola came along, and then I never looked back.
You are your reincarnated grandma, so some jealousy was bound to slip in accidentally. Gina, this has been amazing. I can't believe, thank you so much for sharing all these amazing stories. Do you want to plug your website and your socials? And
yes. So my website is GinaYashere.com. I keep it simple. GinaYashere.com. No dots, no dashes. Boom. My socials are exactly the same. On Instagram, I'm at Gina Yashere. No dots, no dashes. Just type my name in and I'll come up. Same on Twitter, same on Facebook. Obviously, I'm doing the show in Detroit. Please come out. I'm so looking forward to this show. And that's going to be July 22nd at the Majestic. Come on out, book your tickets, and buy my book. I've got a book called Cack-Handed. It's a good book, even if I say so myself. There are some stories in there, and they're funny stories, and they're interesting. And available on Amazon and everywhere. So, come out. Detroit, come and see me. Let's hang.
Hang out with Gina in Detroit. Get Gina's book. There's multiple comedy specials on Amazon Prime and some on Netflix. So all the Gina you want in your life is available at your fingertips. Gina, thank you so much for hanging out with me.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. How amazing was Gina Yashere? I had such a great time talking to Gina. So many stories. Every one of her stories has a story. Amazing, incredible. Get her memoir, Cack-Handed. Check out her comedy specials. Go to GinaYashere.com for links to shows in your area. Detroit, July 22nd, Majestic. But she's touring all over, so check all those out. All there. I'll put everything in the show notes for you so you can have all the Gina Yashere at your fingertips to enjoy. Check out Hearts Abishola. So much. Well, with the interview over, I know it can only mean one thing. This episode has come to a close. I can't believe it. It just flies by. Thanks again to my amazing guest, Gina Yashere. And of course, thanks to all of you for coming back week after week. It means the world to me, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Classic Conversations. If you like what you heard, don't be shy and give us a follow on your favorite podcast app. Also, why not go ahead and tell all your friends about the show? You strike us as the kind of person that people listen to. Thanks in advance for spreading the word, and we'll catch you next time on Classic Conversations.